Hello and welcome to this edition of Jamaica Magazine. I'm your host, Adrian Atkinson. We have a wonderful lineup just for you. Do stay tuned. It all unfolds after the break.
Whatever you do, don't be this guy. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your lifeguard speaking. For your safety and that of those around you, please listen carefully to what I'm going to say next. Whenever possible, swim at a beach with a lifeguard on duty or where signs indicate that swimming is safe. 2. This should probably be number 1, but learn how to swim. 3. Stay in the designated swimming area. 4. Read and follow all guidelines and never swim alone. 5. If you fall into difficulty, raise your hand in the air and call for help. 6. Pay attention to local weather conditions and forecasts. 7. If you observe someone in distress, tell a lifeguard, or if you don't see one, phone 119 or 110 and request a Coast Guard. And before you swim off with this information, my friend Bernard has another tip for you.
Everywhere you go, and you see a fishing vessel like those small ones up there in the harbour, anywhere you go and see those small vessels, that's the safest area to swim.
In this week's episode of Get the Facts, we explore the enrichment program that seeks to achieve 100% literacy among primary school students. Let's watch now to learn more.
Welcome to Get the Facts, the program that provides you with accurate and timely information on government's policies and initiatives. I'm Theodore Henry. Back in 2007, the Ministry of Education partnered with the Digicel Foundation to launch the enrichment program. This initiative was designed to help underperforming students catch up with their peers by providing essential resources to their schools. As part of this effort, over 200 primary schools received either an enrichment center or a mobile enrichment card, both designed to improve students' literacy. Today we're joined by Shauna Murray, the enrichment program specialist from the Ministry of Education's National Literacy Team. She'll be sharing insights into the enrichment program and how it's positively impacting primary school students. Thanks for being here, Lady Murray.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's jump right into getting the facts. You know, sometimes we have the title, the name of the program, but we don't necessarily understand. So help me get the facts. What is the enrichment program? Give me an overview.
Well, as you mentioned so aptly, it started in 2007. It was placed in 235 primary schools. And the key thing about it is that it is designed to help children to, as you said very well, catch up with their peers. But the crucial aspect is that literacy becomes an indicator for children who can either perform above their peers or perform significantly below their peers. What you find is that when a child's literacy rates are low, it could be that they learn quite uniquely, right? Some of those children, when they have gained the skills, they just pummel forward like a catapult,
Right.
and they outperform everyone else. You find that they think uniquely. And so usually in the regular classroom, they do not necessarily learn at the same pace or in the same way as their peers. Then the opposite applies. Same indicator, but those children, even having been given literacy, strong literacy, foundational literacy skills, they perform much slower than their peers.
Okay.
Some do not begin to do very well until age 14, age 18, in their 20s. And some remain, what one would say, on the borderline of literacy and other academics,
Right.
because there are neurological issues and others that affect them. So the enrichment program was designed to help to plug the gap for those children, both those who would be performing above and those who would be performing below. It helps to find them and treat them early.
Because children are the future, the old adage goes, so
Yes.
we're not leaving any of them behind.
No.
Now, you mentioned a specific word. It wasn't marker. It wasn't marker, but
Indicator.
Indicator, that is the
Yeah.
one. So then that helps me with my next question. Students are selected for the program based on their literacy level.
Yes.
That's what you're saying.
Yes, it's the base indicator, and that's how Digicel Foundation, in terms of their proposal and their support to the Ministry of Education, and their later partnership, very robust partnership with the United States Agency for International Development, we call it USAID.
Right.
That's how they were able to give that kind of bolstering to the Ministry of Education, because we were able to look at what the literacy rates across the country were at the time, and to look at some schools that were having a greater challenge.
Yeah.
Because the literacy rate in 2007 was somewhere in the ballpoint figure of 60 to 63% on the then benchmark grade 4 literacy test. The issue with that is that the schools that were being supported, their almost mastery rate to non-mastery rate was far behind the other schools. So they were contributing to the literacy rate, they were contributing weaknesses to the literacy
decline,
rate.
yeah.
Right. And so these schools could get the support that Digicel Foundation would give. Of course, it would have to have had been applied for.
Right.
So it's not just a situation where the schools were offered. The program, the initiative was placed on stream through the Digicel Foundation, and schools had to do their application through their regional bodies,
Right.
Ministry of
I
Education.
want to jump in here though. We're going to talk some more about the Digicel Foundation, because I want to
Yes.
hear about these carts and centers that are set
Yes.
up in the school.
Yes.
But tell me now, how is that literacy level assessed for a student? A student walks in, like what do we do? You mentioned a test. The test is the assessor?
All right. So since we are going a little technical, diagnostics, I don't normally call a test. Well, tests have different delineations.
Okay.
So let's look at it from the perspective of a diagnosis or an assessment is done. There are certain, the word for a moment just eluded me.
Like markers are...
No, not markers.
And not indicators.
We have, no. There are specific instruments.
Instruments, okay.
That we use. As a teacher in the classroom, there's something that we all learn about in college that's very crucial to literacy specialists. It's called an inventory, a reading inventory. The Ministry of Education, as early as 2007, developed its own inventory for the purpose of diagnostics. So it's called an informal diagnostic reading inventory. We've called it the IDRI. Right? So we have these reading inventories that can tell us, A, does a child have a letter knowledge issue, or does a child have a comprehension issue, or does a child have a literal comprehension issue, or has trouble getting inferences, right? Or does a child have issues with certain clusters of words like OI and EE, but has no issue otherwise? So
it's very comprehensive.
Yes. So at the classroom level and at the school level, this is done. Right? This is not done on a national basis because, as you can understand, it's not standardized.
Got it. Not a one-size-fits-all.
It's not a one-size-fits-all. So when the IDRI is done at the school level, the teacher gets that kind of information that says what the challenge the child is having. So that's one instrument. At the national level...
Before we go to the national level, we have to take a break. We will be back shortly. We're talking about the enrichment program, the National Enrichment Program aimed at our literacy level in this country. Please stay with us.
So Bonnie, you renew your road license yet?
Babes, the road have me away. I can't even find time, but you know money have to make.
Because see, I shall out them money the back for late fee and record fee when you sit down make your road license expire upon you.
Well, transport authority so we can apply online. And that me I got to know.
Operators of public passenger vehicles and commercial carriers, renew your road license before April 1 and avoid late penalty. A message from the Transport Authority.
Welcome back to Get the Facts. We're diving deeper into the program and we're exploring how it benefits our students with insights from Shauna Murray, Enrichment Program Specialist. So we're talking about the instruments. Well, no, we were talking about how a child is assessed. You gave us the local level.
Yeah,
the
school
now going
level
to the
instrument.
national level.
All right, and then you have the tests that teachers use alongside that support. But at the national level, the ministry had instituted as early as that time the grade 4 literacy test.
Yes.
So the grade 4 literacy test is designed actually to pick up those same things that I mentioned, right? And it would tell how children at that cohort are performing. So the Digicel Foundation would have used the national benchmark grade 4 literacy test scores at the time. And the Ministry of Education, in this partnership, initially we had many informal programs to help in the schools for children who were not mastering the grade 4, right? And so the Ministry of Education would have, with the Digicel Foundation, decided that, all right, we would put for some schools, we would factor the informal programs and funnel them into the enrichment program. In that, we will give a number of rooms. Yes, we would take those rooms off our establishment, so to speak. The Digicel Foundation then renovated these rooms, made them rich with technology, and this is now the 67 for the larger schools. Made them rich with technology and all the things that could assist with literacy, but not literacy only, because if you're looking at enrichment, you're looking at a wider area, you're incorporating the special needs aspect of things, you're incorporating the foundational numeracy aspect of things. So they gave a lot of resources to assist with that. And the Ministry of Education also said we will put one member of staff from these 67 schools to man each room and see to it that the students get that kind of support they're supposed to get in partnership with parents and the guidance counseling department and the principal, just make it what one would call a full-bodied approach to helping children who could either soar above their peers or would need support throughout their primary lives.
Oh, hold on, let me break it down now. So at the national level, so we have the instruments for assessment at the local level.
Yes.
And at the national level, you're saying Digicel, and you just described the enrichment centers.
Yes.
That's because I was going to ask you about it, what is in an enrichment room? You just gave me that. So you're saying Digicel provides the room, the technology, the stuff inside.
Well, probably splitting ears, but they don't necessarily provide the rooms, they renovate.
Right, they renovate the
ministry
rooms.
provides the rooms, and that comes off their establishment, because every school has a certain financial, we could cost a school. So when the ministry puts a classroom over, it carries a certain cost. So that becomes a part of their host country contribution to a project, and at that time it was still in project stage. So if Digicel is giving, let's say, $10, the ministry has to be able to match another $10. So our rooms have been a part of that.
So the ministry provides the infrastructure, the room,
Yes.
Digicel renovates, but the ministry also sends in the
teacher.
specialist.
Yes, the teacher.
So, okay, you know what I really want to know about now? Give me a success story. Show us the impact.
There are many. Let me give an anecdote quickly. Am I allowed to name the school also, or just?
Right ahead.
So, all right, we had this young man at Irwin Primary. He came in, everything seemed okay. He communicated relatively well and everything, but he just would not be able to write well or to read, to pick up. So his grade 1 teacher, as she's supposed to do, she worked with him very well. She kept having discussions with the enrichment center coordinator, but by the end of grade 1, he still was not doing well. So they channeled him to go to the enrichment center, which is understandable. The enrichment center coordinator used one of her peculiar instruments, and she found that he might have been she cannot diagnose, by the way, but she can pick up a few things. So she realized that there were some issues with his writing and correlating stuff from there. And she started to have more discussions with the parents. After 2 terms, he still was not progressing, so they quickly referred him for special needs assessment, which is what she's supposed to do.
Right.
Prior to that, though, the parent made a confession. This child had fallen off the bed in infancy and had been hospitalized. So it actually did affect him.
Right.
When the special needs team at Sam Sharp Teachers College did their assessment, it was found out that the child was dyslexic and also had dysgraphia, which is an issue to do with handwriting and correlating language, dysgraphia writing, and that can result from trauma to the dysgraphia, and there were other issues he was having. So they decided to take him for the next year, once per week at the center. But then they said when they started to work with him, they wrote back to the school and said, "Well, what you have done with this child, the progress he has already made since he's been in the center, we think it's best to send him back to you because the enrichment center coordinator at the time, it was Mrs. Alison Roberts-Williams. She's doing a magnificent job with him already. We'll keep in touch with her and give her tips from time to time." Now, that young man was able to move significantly forward in terms of his ability to read and write. And that's just one success story. There are others from schools across the country that we could give. And it's best to give those on the ground because that's where the work really happens. So yes, a certain face is seen on GIS, but the real work happens in those schools with those teachers like Mrs. Roberts-Williams from Irving Primary. You can get into trouble naming names.
Yes, I don't name them more.
But you have those teachers that really push the grind. It's not necessarily that it's easy for them, but they do a marvelous job getting those children moving forward. By the way, not everybody masters.
Right.
But we have not yet found any child that they have worked with who has not had some movement.
Yeah. I really enjoyed this conversation, and one thing I took out from your last story, your story, is how comprehensive the infrastructure
the approach is, yes.
Right, it works between the different levels. Thank you so much for sharing with us about the enrichment program. This has been Get the Facts. Our guest today was Shauna Murray, Enrichment Program Specialist from the Ministry of Education, Skills and Youth and Information's National Literacy Team. Thank you for watching, and until next time, I'm Theodore Henry. Take good care.
Lost receipts can mean big trouble during tax season. The Tax Administration Jamaica TAJ urges businesses to keep these records safe.
Most Jamaicans, from time to time, throw away the receipt. You know, you're doing a business and you bought some stock. But because the quality of each of those receipts fade quickly, they just throw them away. The tax department is advising that you are to keep proper books and records for tax purposes. So if it is going to fade, what do you do first? You would ensure that you either scan it, copy it, and save it in a format that it can be used for future use later on. At least 7 years, the Income Tax Act would put it.
With the continued fight against HIV and AIDS, it is important to look at the issues that aid in the virus prevalence. Today, we look at the connection between domestic violence and HIV and AIDS.
Domestic violence on its own is a long-standing issue being tackled on many fronts. Still, it persists. The HIV/AIDS virus, too, is being tackled on many fronts, but with challenges such as discrimination, the battle rages on. And the catastrophic combination of these two could pose a threat to the United Nations goal of ending contraction of the virus by the year 2030.
Many times people sit out there and they judge people living with HIV. How you know you have the virus and you don't go to the doctor and you don't take your medication? But there is so much more happening in people's lives that you'd be surprised to know this HIV that you take as the big thing becomes minor to all the other challenges that they are trying to cope with.
Challenges like the fear of one's spouse, knowing that resistance could be met with physical and other abuse, making it easy for the abuser to use forced or coerced intercourse, unprotected at that. Domestic violence generally makes negotiation during intercourse difficult or non-existent. It's often cloaked in the idea of a woman being a man's property instead of his beloved in need of his protection.
The cultural norms about what it means to be man or woman, the cultural beliefs that continues to say, you are in charge. As the man, you are supposed to take charge, and if the woman does anything out of line, you are supposed to put her in place.
And our society propels these ideas further when we victim blame, putting the burden of responsibility on those on the receiving end of the abuse.
We don't have a supportive society when it comes to these issues of domestic violence. One of the first things is asked in numerous cases is what you do. Why you don't make the man lick you? This is a frequent question in instances people have gone to the police to make reports and the question is asked. They have gone to health facilities to seek health care for the injuries suffered during the violent attack, and they have been asked these questions. So there's always the victim blaming, and because of that many people hide it. They don't talk about it. They don't say that they have experienced this.
And an abusive partner knows this and further exerts control by restricting access to medical care, including HIV testing and medication, which could reduce the risk of infection.
And they stay there with injuries that are life-threatening because how am I going to explain how I got this injury? How am I going to explain they're going to think I'm not some women may think they're not going to think I'm not a good woman, I'm not a good wife. Why did the man have to abuse me?
And abuse is not always physical. Many times it's psychological or even from the standpoint of economic dependence. This is when the partner with financial control prevents their victim from leaving an abusive relationship by exerting this fact, trapping them in a situation where they are continuously dependent and exposed to further abuse and the risk of contracting HIV.
Many times people reduce violence to the physical, sexual, but there is emotional, there is financial, there is neglect, there is all these ones. And many times it is the economic disparity between the two that makes people more susceptible to these forms of violence. You find that many persons who experience violence are dependent on the abuser. They are dependent on the abuser for their own survival. They are dependent on the abuser for the survival of their children. They are dependent on the abuser for the survival of the extended family. And because of that, many times they remain in the abusive situation, and this level of economic dependence increases their vulnerability to both violence and HIV.
And one who exerts physical and economic dominance may seek further control by causing isolation. When there's isolation, people may become unaware, and a lack of awareness and education may cause victims to not have access to information about HIV prevention.
When they feel they are out of options, they stay away. And this staying away may mean staying away from work, staying away from their social circles, staying away from needed health care. This is one of the causes where people living with HIV who are experiencing domestic violence end up drop out of care.
This is where the Jamaica AIDS Support for Life comes in, working with victims and giving them much needed support.
We provide a suite of services. We provide what we call holistic care. It's not just about treating the HIV virus, but we provide psychosocial support. We have full-time psychologists on staff that we make accessible to our clients. We have social workers who may assess their needs. It may be basic food, basic survival. It may be to help with job placement. It may be some sort of economic support. It may be some sort of income generating grant. We look at the whole man, whatever it takes to help, and we provide the legal support most of all. If it means that we have to go to court in helping these persons to get out of their situation, if we have to connect them to some form of shelter, whatever it is that is needed to get people in care. HIV is just one aspect of their life. It is just an illness, like any other illness. So if you think you're just going to focus on that and ignore all the other areas of their lives, you're going to have little or no success. Simply put, in Jamaica, them say you can't take pill on hungry belly. So just consider someone who don't even have food to eat. And you may be looking from the other side of the fence and say why they don't take their medication, but they don't even have food to eat. And right now, their primary concern is where the next meal is coming from, or where the meal is coming from, as opposed to whether or not I'm going to go seek care and take medication. So we have to take a holistic approach to helping people who are survivors of domestic violence and also those living with HIV.
Keep your heart beating strong. Your health is your wealth. Practice healthy habits. 30 minutes a day keeps heart disease away. Choose life.
And with that, we've come to the end of today's show. To catch a repeat of this or any other, feel free to log on to our website, jis.gov.jm. Until next time, I'm Adrian Atkinson. Do take care.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.